So we've all been sold a massive lie about economic growth. Seriously. For decades, we've had this totally backwards idea about how countries actually escape poverty. Well, in this explainer, we're going to dive into some data that completely shatters everything you thought you knew. Let's get right into it.
You know the story, right? Cities boom, skyscrapers go up, and rural villages, they're just left to rot in the dirt. We basically assume urban wealth only feeds the rich elite. I mean, it makes sense. It feels true. But guess what? It is completely, factually false.
Yeah, the exact opposite is actually happening. Take India, for example. India's booming cities aren't abandoning the rural poor at all. They're literally saving them. It turns out urban wealth is the greatest weapon we have against rural poverty. Crazy, right? It's a total mind-bending paradox.
And look, we're not just guessing here based on some random fluke. We are looking at 60 years, yes, 60 years of unprecedented, rigorous economic data from India. That is undeniable proof of a massive systemic shift. We're talking about the absolute gold standard of economic tracking in the developing world.
Thinking about the last few decades, there's this undeniable, super aggressive plunge in extreme poverty. It's basically diving off a cliff. And the crazy part? It's happening not just in those gleaming cities, but simultaneously out in the deep rural countryside. It's a straight-up economic miracle happening across the board. So what actually triggered this sudden drop?
Well, everything changed in 1991. Massive economic reforms basically drew a huge line in the sand. Before 1991, only farms could save farmers. But after 1991, those old rules completely died. Cities stepped up and started saving absolutely everyone.
To really get this miracle, you kind of have to understand the old world. Pre-1991, agriculture was king. If you were a poor farmer, literally only a good harvest could save you. City wealth, it stayed totally locked behind city limits. Basically, you had two completely disconnected Indias.
But then, post-1991, the data just slaps us in the face. Welcome to the economic shockwave. Urban growth is now the primary driver of national poverty reduction. The spillover is just massive. The cities got rich and they violently dragged the villages up right along with them. They are definitely not disconnected anymore.
And when we break down what actually killed this poverty, the results are shocking. The urban service sector, so IT, finance, retail, crushed 60% of it single-handedly. Industry and construction handled another 25%. Agriculture's impact, it shrank to less than 10%. Farming is no longer the hero of the countryside. The city is.
Now, you might be thinking, well, obviously, the farmers just moved to the cities to get rich. Wrong again. Academics totally assume this for years. They call it the myth of population shift. But the data absolutely proves physical migration was not the magic bullet here. The overwhelming majority of people stayed exactly where they were.
Because it's not about moving at all. It is all about urban economic spillover. Instead of people moving to the money moved to the people. Cities generated this massive demand. They needed goods, they needed construction materials, and they sent wages back home. All this wealth just spilled right over the village borders. It pulled the surrounding rural areas out of extreme poverty without forcing everyone to pack their bags.
Okay, but we really have to be brutally honest about how this data was actually collected, because this is where it gets super fascinating. When surveyors knock on doors, people lie. They hide their money. If we compare these standard household surveys to the actual national bank accounts, a massive, massive discrepancy appears. The national accounts show wealth growing much, much faster than people ever admit.
And this exposes a glaring blind spot in the data. The ultra-rich are severely underreporting their spending. The rich hide their wealth. So what does this actually mean? It means inequality is likely much, much worse than the official surveys show. The gap between the elites and the poor is way wider and way darker than the numbers on paper even suggest.
Make no mistake, inequality is skyrocketing. In these booming urban centers, the wealth gap is expanding at a genuinely dangerous speed. And even in rural areas, wealth is heavily concentrating at the very, very top. The system is fundamentally, deeply unequal. We absolutely cannot ignore that harsh reality. But okay, that leads us directly to a stunning realization, the ultimate paradox. The gap between the rich and the poor is exploding, yet absolute poverty is dying. Just let that sink in for a second. The elites are getting obscenely rich, but this exact same unequal system is eradicating starvation faster than ever before. The yachts are rising rapidly, sure, but the rising tide is still lifting the rowboats.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, pretty provocative thought. Inequality is rising faster than ever. We hate to see it, right? But if extreme poverty is dying right alongside it, is the trade-off worth it? If an unequal system is literally the only thing successfully crushing absolute poverty, is it a price we should be willing to pay? Really think about it.